video we will discuss about the literary elements in children's literature. Here are some examples for literary elements in children's literature. They are character, setting, plot, point of view, theme, style and tone. Character. In children's literature, character is used to mean a person or personified animal or object. Character development is the collection of features that bring the character to life, inner and outer qualities. The revelation of character occurs through the character's thoughts, conversations, actions and behavior, the author's narration and the thought of the other characters. There are 4 types of characters. They are round characters, flat characters, dynamic characters and static characters. Round characters are fully developed in the story, whereas flat characters are less important characters but essential to the action. Dynamic characters change in the course of the action, whereas static characters do not change in the course of the story. We can consider the following things of a story to analyze characterization of a children's book. They are physical traits, inner qualities, revelation of the character, relationship to the other characters and types of characters. Here are 2 good picture books for character study. They are Amazing Grace by Hoffman and My Great Aunt Arizona by Gloria Huston. How to connect characterization with the classroom. Character synchronography, objectives and character traits, character development story map, and character diary entries. The next literary element in children's literature we are discussing is setting. The time and place where the story occurs can be defined as setting. Here are some characteristics of setting. Time identified as past, present, or future. Setting is developed through text or illustrations. Setting provides details which reinforce the plot and characterization. How can an author use setting to enhance story? When the story depends upon the reader's understanding, envisioning, feeling, and sensing a particular scene, an author often goes to greater lengths to describe clearly the setting. An author may sometimes choose not to clearly describe a setting or make it too specific because to do so might limit the universality of the conflict. Types of settings. Backdrop setting. Setting is of secondary importance. Story focus is likely to be on characters, character confrontation, dialogue, action, and the development of conflict. The second type is time and place influence action, character, or theme. Characters behave in a given way because of time and place. Here are some good picture books to understand setting. Gleam and Glow by Eve Bunting, Grandfather's Journey by Alan Stay, and The Relatives Came by Cynthia Ryland. How to connect the story setting with the classroom. The teacher can compare the 2 settings, for example, Where I Live versus the story setting. The third literary element is plot. Plot is a sequence of events showing characters in action. Sequence is chosen by the author as the best way of telling the story. There are three elements of the plot. They are narrative order, conflict, and pattern of action. Now let's briefly discuss the three elements of the plot. First one is narrative order. It is the way or the order in which the writer chooses to unfold the story to the reader. Narrative order is of two types, chronological and flashbacks. Chronological is events are related in the order of their happening, whereas flashback means writer disrupts normal time sequence to recount some past events. The second element in plot is the conflict. It is the struggles the protagonist of the story faces. There are four types of conflicts. They are the conflict between person against the self, and the conflict against a person, and the conflict between person against society and person against nature. In the conflict between person against self, character typically faces an internal conflict which pulls him towards two courses of action. The conflict between person against person involves a struggle between two or more characters, and the conflict between person against society involves a struggle between a character or characters and either social, cultural values and sometimes the law. The conflict between the person against nature involves a conflict between a character and some forces or forces of nature. The third element of plot is the pattern of action. The pattern that the action of the story takes place is described as the pattern of action. There are three patterns of action. They are suspense, climax, and denouement. Suspense is a state of uncertainty about what events will happen in the story. Climax is peak and turning point of conflicts, the point at which the reader knows the outcome of the action. Denouement is resolution or tying together of the plot that gives the reader a sense of completeness at the end. Here are some good picture books to understand plot. The Ugly Duckling, The Harriet and the Promised Land. The fourth literary element is point of view. The side of the story the reader sees as revealed by the author through the characters is known as the point of view. Point of view is seen through the eyes and the minds of characters as the plot unfolds. Now let's discuss about the types of point of view. The first type is first person. Story told through first person narrator, I, whose actions and feelings influence story. This character is limited in perspective because she cannot tell what another character thinks unless told by the other character. The second type is objective point of view. Author lets actions speak for themselves. Author describes only the character's action. The reader is left to infer characters' thoughts and feelings. Omniscient point of view. Story is told in the third person with the author talking about they, he or she. Author is not restricted to the knowledge, experience and feelings of one character. Feelings, thoughts and even motives of any or all characters can be revealed to give the reader helpful information. The fourth type is limited omniscient point of view. It is a combination of the first person and omniscient. Story is told through the eyes of a single character, usually the protagonist, but is not told in first person. Here are some good picture books to understand the point of view. The True Story of the Three Little Pigs and the Three Stories You Can Read to Your Dog by Sarah Miller. The fifth literal element is theme, the idea that holds the story together or the author's message to the reader. It is the main idea or the central meaning of the story. Themes often deal with society, human nature, the human condition, social issues, and good versus evil. The authors reveal theme explicitly as well as implicitly. This diagram shows an examples for themes in children's literature. Stories usually have a cluster of themes which are often related. There are two types of themes, primary theme and secondary theme. Primary theme is central theme which is of more importance than the rest, whereas secondary themes are the themes which seem of less importance than the primary one. Themes are the underlying ideas, morals, and lessons that give the story its texture, depth, and meaning. The plot relates to a single story, whereas theme is applicable to hundreds of stories. The sixth literal element is style. Author's choice and arrangement of words in order to create plot, characterizations, setting, and theme can be described as style. Now let's discuss some examples for devices of style. First one is connotation. Connotation is associative or emotional meaning of a word, usually used to describe a character or situation. Imagery. Imagery is the appeal of the senses, which helps to create setting, establish mood and character. Figurative language. Figurative languages are words used in a non-literal way, giving meaning beyond the usual sense. Examples for figurative languages are personification, simile, or metaphor. Hyperbole. It is the exaggeration used for humor or to make a point. Understatement. Understatement is opposite of exaggeration, used to play down a happening or situation. Allusion. Allusion tends to have more meaning for mature readers, relies on a reference to something in our common understanding, our past, or our literature. Symbol. Symbol is something that operates on two levels of meaning, the literal and the figurative levels. Puns and wordplay. Now let's discuss examples for devices of sound. Onomatopoeia is the words that sound like their meaning. Alliteration. It is repetition of a similar vowel sound within a phrase. Consonance. It is a close repetition of a consonant sound within a phrase but not in the initial position. And finally, rhythm and cadences are also devices of sound. The seventh literary element of children's literature is tone. Tone is the author's attitude towards what he or she has written. For example, humor, mysterious, creepy, straightforward, matter of fact, exciting, or boring.